Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg with Cloudcast Media, and you're not supposed to have favorites. I think I say this a lot. But this is one of my favorite. Longtime friend and colleague, retired San Diego Police Chief, Shelley Zimmerman, just the consummate community leader here in San Diego County. And Shelley, it's so good to see you.
You know what, Drew, thank you very much for those kind words, and I feel the exact same way about you. I consider you a dear friend.
Well, absolutely. That's great. On another show, we're going to talk about UCLA, Ohio State, but that's another story.
Go Buckeyes.
That's right. The Bruins. We'll see how they survive in the Big Ten this year. Joined by my co-host, almost celebrating our first anniversary. Kristen Fogle's the executive director of San Diego Writers Inc. She's done a great job. Honored to have her sitting next to me for all these shows. And Kristen, why don't you just start us off?
I will. I just wanted to know, though, is the first anniversary gold? Is that what it, or is it? Is it wheat? I don't remember which
It's probably less than paper.
Okay, so yeah, it's the you'll get what you get, Kristen, anniversary.
Exactly.
Before we get into Prop 36, just for some of us that don't know the lineage and the history, can you take us into what Prop 47 is and what happened when that passed?
Yeah, no, great question, and thanks for that. Well, I would tell you that Proposition 47 was a ballot measure way back in 2014, and it was called the Safe Streets and Schools Act. And I have to tell you, from my perspective, it was incredibly, that title, misleading. When Proposition 47 passed, here's what it did, is that it lowered the possession of hard drugs, such as cocaine, methamphetamine, and heroin to a misdemeanor every single time.
Okay.
It also made theft, if you stole under $950, a misdemeanor every single time. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So what that meant is that it would be a misdemeanor on the 5th time that you had possessed hard drugs or stole on the under $950.
Yeah.
It would be a misdemeanor the 30th time you did it, a misdemeanor the 100th time you did it. There was no incremental penalties. And I'm going to tell you is that this has greatly contributed to the explosion of open-air drug markets, retail theft, and homelessness.
So can I ask a clarifying question? So first time, every time prior to that, these were felonies? Or is it repeat that it became a felony?
It was petty theft with a prior became a felony prior to Proposition 47, and the possession of hard drugs was also a felony.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. All right. Okay, so that was Proposition 47. So what did you see occur, after that? It seems like you're alluding to it was not good. It was not good for San Diegans. It was not.
Correct. It was not good for anyone across the state. It wasn't just a San Diego, proposition. It was a California state proposition. And so it's been 10 years now, and it's a failed experiment. Now, it might have been well-intentioned. I'll say that. I don't think anybody had nefarious reasons why they did it, but, it was well-intentioned. But, I opposed it from the very beginning because it was flawed. Is that when you lower penalties without consequences, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
You have to hold people accountable. And so that's why I got very involved in the reform of Proposition 47. And I helped gather signatures to place the reform on the ballot. And I will tell you, let me just talk a little bit about the response.
Yeah.
Is that the response has been extremely positive. Now, it wasn't an easy lift because to qualify for this ballot coming up in November of 2024 to reform Prop 47, 556,000 signatures were required for the initiative. I will tell you, there's a large Big Ten coalition, and together we gathered close to 1 million signatures, so almost twice as much. As an example, when I held my personal event to gather signatures outside the Vons right here in Scripps Ranch in San Diego.
Old Vons are new?
What's it? The new Vons.
New Vons.
Yeah, new Vons on Scripps Poway Parkway.
Yes, a little bit of an inside joke. So.
That's true. If you're Scripps Ranch, that's true.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you is that I'd advertised what time the event was gonna start, and I actually arrived about 30 minutes earlier than I said that the event would start, and there were already a line of people just lined up waiting to sign. And I'll tell you is that, the conversations that I continue to have with community members, they've seen with their own eyes items placed under lock and key inside, CVS's and other stores. And they've also seen the explosion of these open-air drug dens and markets and homelessness. And I will tell you is that people are very eager to change this.
Absolutely.
So now that's what Prop 36 is, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Is there a title to it? The other one was called Safe. What was
Safe
it?
Streets and Schools Act.
Safe. Okay, right. And what's Prop 36? Undoing the safe schools and Prop.
So great question. What Proposition 36? So by obtaining almost 1 million signatures that did qualify for the ballot, we recently gotten the proposition number, and that's Proposition 36,
right,
which will reform Proposition 47. And we have titled it, the coalition has titled it the Homelessness, Drug Addiction, and Theft Reduction Act. And here's what it does, is that it provides common sense reforms to Proposition 47 that the legislature alone is just unable to deliver. Specifically, Proposition 36 is going to address this. It will address the organized and serial retail theft. It will confront the fentanyl crisis in our communities, and it prioritizes mental health and drug treatment. So if I may, let me just get into a little more of the nuts and bolts of this.
Yeah, please.
Is that Proposition 36 will hold repeat offenders accountable for the safety of our communities rather than putting them right back onto our streets. It makes repeated theft a felony now for individuals who'll steal less than $950 if they have 2 or more previous theft-related convictions. Proposition 36 allows now for stolen property values from multiple thefts to be combined. So what this does is that repeat offenders can now be charged with a felony if the total exceeds $950, which is going to counter the tactics that were used by career criminals to avoid harsher penalties by repeated petty crime. It also will define fentanyl as a hard drug. Now, it's hard to believe that fentanyl right now is not considered and defined as a hard drug.
Yeah.
You're kidding.
No, it's not. But Proposition 36 will fix that, and it will define it as a hard drug to hold individuals convicted of trafficking fentanyl accountable. And it also will grant judges a greater discretion in sentencing these drug traffickers. There can now be stricter penalties for possessing fentanyl with a firearm, and, very important, when trafficking fentanyl causes death or serious injury. You've heard about all the explosion of overdose deaths by fentanyl. So here's something else, too, is that Proposition 36 also provides, and this is critical, the critical mental health and drug treatment services and job training within our justice system for people who are homeless and suffering from mental illness or struggling with substance abuse. And it does this very specifically by enacting a new class of crime called a treatment mandated felony, which means offenders with multiple hard drug possession convictions are given the opportunity of participating in drug and mental health treatment in lieu of incarceration. And so what this means, too, is that it will allow offenders who successfully complete the drug and mental health treatment to avoid jail time and have their charge fully expunged.
It's just funny you bring this up, Shelley. We're chatting with retired San Diego Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman. I'm Drew Schlosberg, as you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, and brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades, just doing great things in the community, joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel. Well, it's interesting. We were just chatting with some folks from Plus Box and Produce Good about a Senate bill that was passed that absolutely there was nothing behind it that say, well, good, you made us do X, but is there any money for us to execute it? Mm-hmm. Here, what you've just described, the exact opposite, is that we're going to go change Prop 47, and the reason why there are going to be some resources behind it. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's definitely going to cost money, but how much money has been spent because of the organized retail theft, and those, you've seen mom pop stores and other CVS stores that are closing left and right because they can't keep items on their on their shelves, and so it has cost literally millions of dollars already. Mm-hmm.
So let me take a guess here. Who is supporting Prop 36? I'm just going to go say everyone should. Correct?
Well, everyone should, and I would tell you, there's always going to be some that are not going to support it. My experience, you could be giving out $100 bills, and people will be upset because you didn't give out 2 $100 bills. But you bring up a good point, because let's talk about who is supporting Proposition 36, and I'm very pleased to say is that, and not surprisingly, it enjoys broad bipartisan support from all stripes: Democrats, Republicans, independents. I'm an independent, It's supported by social justice and affinity groups, by small and minority business owners and organizations, medium and large business owners and organizations, victim and drug abuse advocacy organizations, public safety organizations, victim organizations, and many more. And let's not forget almost the 1 million individuals that signed to put this on the ballot.
Exactly. So obviously, moving forward, listen, according to you, get out and vote, always a good thing to do on this. And are there workshops, are there seminars, are there whatever? If someone goes, boy, that sounds like a great thing to readjust Prop 47, how do I learn more?
Yeah, exactly. And you could go to the Homelessness, Drug Addiction, and Theft Reduction Act. There's a whole coalition. There's webcasts. There's more information on the website. I can encourage you to do this. So just go to support Prop 36, and it'll take you to that.
Right. Kristen, I know obviously you've got a young family and so forth. Nothing more.
Well, some of it. My son is young. Yes.
You're pretty young.
Yeah. No.
But the bottom line is you want your kid to be safe.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on this?
I think that sounds fantastic. I love that you're kind of going upriver and addressing some of these issues, with homelessness and things like that. I think that part really appeals to me. And, obviously you don't want folks committing these crimes over and over and over again. I mean, everyone, until we're blue in the face, has heard of fentanyl. And, we all know people that have been affected by it. We've got to get our hands around this. So
right. We'll come back from break. Shelley, I want to chat about homelessness, okay?
Yeah.
In this aspect, and so much of this stuff is, shoulder to shoulder. As you know, you've been on my show a zillion times. You always leave some time at the end to what could our listeners do to support your efforts. And if you don't mind, and certainly if you don't want to chat about it, that's fine. I want to talk about the street lights and the cameras and all that stuff.
I'd love definitely to talk about that.
Because I know you've written some great op-eds in the Union Tribune on that as well. When you returned with Shelley Zimmerman, retired chief of police for San Diego. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are now in our 18th year, the longest running community podcast. We're brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for more than 60 years doing great things in San Diego County. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg with Cloudcast Media, and you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 18th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for 6 decades, doing great things in San Diego County. Honored to have in the studio is retired San Diego Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman, and joined by my co-host Kristen Fogel. She is the executive director of San Diego Writers, Inc. They're celebrating their 20th anniversary this year in Liberty Station. Homelessness, talk about it.
Yeah, I tell you, first of all, every homeless individual has their own unique story on how they became homeless. I've spent, 35 years on the police department, was honored to retire as the chief of police, and I still go out and talk to our homeless all the time. So, to still have up-to-date information. And I will tell you, it continues to be mostly broken down into this. You have the have-nots, the can-nots, and the will-nots. And let me explain what that is. The have-nots, the can-nots, and the will-nots. The have-nots are those individuals who may have lost their job, maybe there was a death in the family, their rent has increased, a medical issue, or other issues like that, and they simply just don't have enough, and they find themselves, out homeless. And in this case, I believe, as a society, we must do everything that we can to make sure that they do not end up homeless. And then you have the can-nots, which I believe are the largest group of the homeless population. And those are those that are drug addicted and or have mental health issues. And I will tell you is that addicts can do irrational and incomprehensible things chasing their addictions. Holding a steady job, paying bills, and maintaining a home are nowhere on their priority list. Their priority is chasing their addictions. And for these homeless individuals, we as a society, we must intervene for their own health, safety, and welfare, and the health, safety, and welfare of our community. And then you have the will-nots. And these are individuals who are defiant, and they believe that they can do what they want, where they want, and whenever they want. And we must hold them accountable and enforce the rule of law. Now, I would tell you, I could see the question you would ask, is that there's some people who say that the police just should not be involved at all regarding our homeless population. And I reject that. This is the reality, is that we must stop allowing people to use illegal narcotics on our streets, have tent encampments. And our best defense is our police. And here's why. The police, they have the legal authority to place someone under arrest and literally remove the needle from their arm or the pipe from their mouth. Officers are the only one that can judicially intervene and stop the behaviors that San Diegans are concerned about. Now, officers, they intervene to protect the health, safety, and welfare of homeless individuals and safeguard San Diegans from becoming victims of crimes. Now, more reality is that horrible things happen in homeless encampments. And these include violent attacks, extortion, sexual assault, human trafficking, drug use, and even murder. And we have seen what happens when you remove police from the equation or if you tie their hands. And I'm all for I'll tell you right now, I'm 100% all for having social workers doing social work and police doing police work. But each has an important role in improving our homeless crisis. Cops, they play the critical part in leading homeless individuals off the road to self-destruction, and social workers represent the gateway to supportive services. I'll tell you right from the get-go, the cops, they don't have to be the front line, but they must be the bottom line. They are essential in addressing our homeless crisis. Too many people have died, too many San Diegans, and not just San Diegans, we're talking here from San Diego, but from throughout California, have dealt with these deplorable conditions. It's time we all take a stand and back the police efforts as part of the solution.
Yeah, absolutely cannot disagree to that. Kristen?
No, that all sounds fantastic. I want to go back to something that you said. Maybe you just had a gripe with a camera that caught you speeding or something like that. I don't know. But I want to go to and talk about
I do have
that.
a gripe on those, but that's not why I brought it up.
True. So I wanted to talk about, I've heard that you've been very vocal about police being able to use technology to prevent and solve crime. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, another great question, and that certainly has been in the news, quite a bit. And I guess I'll start by saying this, is that, if essential tools are kept from the police, advantages are given to those who commit crimes, and innocent victims are left wondering why their crimes remain unsolved. This benefits no one. This is the 21st century, and the police must be allowed to use 21st century technology to help keep our communities safe. I would tell you, too, is that the police have used technology responsibly and legally for years and years and years. But it has been turned off by the current administration. And some of the technology I'm talking about are gunshot detection sensors and license plate readers. So let me put technology in perspective.
Yeah.
I'm going to date myself here, but that's okay. When I first joined the police department in 1982, I carried a pocket full of dimes and later quarters, and often used payphones to obtain information.
And, Kristen's too young for this. You know what a payphone is?
Stop it. Yeah, I use payphones. Get out of here.
I used a Thomas Brothers map to respond to the numerous calls from our public. So when cell phones replaced pagers, when computers equipped with mapping and other technological systems became a standard piece of equipment inside a patrol car, police officers became much more efficient and effective in serving our communities. And I'll tell you, we're very proud of this, is that many years later, San Diego PD became our nation's largest department at the time to require police officers to wear body cameras. But today, let's go back to the technology we're talking about that can help improve community and police safety has come to a grinding halt. And it's only been very recently that just a small amount of this technology has again been authorized for the use by SDPD. So how did this happen? I think is the question that you're asking. Well, let's think about this. The city of San Diego is the 8th largest city, is a huge bureaucracy. But again, the current mayor and city council, they wanted more bureaucracy. And so they formed a technology privacy advisory board. Now, to me, the key word in this is advisory. But the mayor and council required the police department to get approval for any technology the department uses. And in the meantime, they prohibited the department from using much of the technology until it was approved by the advisory board and then approved by the city council. It took literally years for the advisory board to even be put in place. And then the initial advisory board procedures made it virtually impossible for police departments to get timely approval. In my opinion, this is absolutely outrageous. The mayor and city council really need to start acting with urgency to give the police department the tools, the resources, and training they need to make sure that San Diego remains a safe city. Now, let me just say one more thing, is that there are some, and I always try to give the other, sometimes other perspective. There are some that say that the San Diego Police Department, they don't need to use technology because San Diego is a safe city. And even with even with the increase in violent crime, we are still safer.
Yes.
Okay, even though crime is, particularly violent crime is increased, and so we are still safer than we were in the late 80s and early 90s. Again, I reject this because when you are the victim, there is no acceptable level of crime. And so, from my perspective, again, the police department must use technology, 21st century technology, in order to fight 21st century crime.
So, a lot of this has to do with the street lamps and all that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask is what sort of technology are they barred from using now or restricted or trying to work out and all of that? I'm trying to...
Again, for years, for 3+ years, they weren't allowed to use license plate readers. They weren't allowed to use, cameras. They weren't allowed to, they still not allowed to use gunshot detection sensors, and you think, why wouldn't you want the police to respond more quickly to gunfire?
Yeah.
But again, that technology has not been approved to be turned back on. So, again, from my point of view, is that it's, and I do understand the privacy, and there has to be very robust policy and procedures in place for the police department, but they must be allowed to use this technology. And again, they've used it responsibly and legally for years to help lower crime and prevent crime.
It's absolutely a no-brainer. I was asking my daughter about this. Sammy is 30, teaches in the Poway School District, and I said, there was the article that came out during Pride Week, of course, and good for Scott Wall to say, no, we're doing this thing. Scott Wall's a new police chief in this aspect of it. And no, we want to do this. We know there are some elevated crimes on people that fall into the gay sphere, so to speak. And we want to make sure everybody is safe, for God's sake, on it. And there's some pushback, and you just shake your head. And good for him for putting his foot down on this thing. I'm not sure where it ended up. I asked my daughter about it. He goes, the people that sit there and absolutely don't want this, they must be doing something nefarious, because if you're abiding by the law, you don't care. You want to be safe. And if I know I'm safe, because the thing, and what it also does is it helps get people who are innocent out of the courts. You know what? This wasn't Joe Blow. You got him arrested, and what Joe Blow wasn't there. He was over, at Kelly's bar doing whatever the case may be. It is an absolutely no-brainer. Question for you: are we any closer to getting this resolved, or as long as there's that technology and safety advisory board, whatever it's called, it won't happen? Well,
first of all, I applaud Chief Wall for using the emergency clause to get this this technology up for these major events. Wouldn't we all prefer to prevent something instead of responding to something, and it helps. I don't believe it's been docketed, and that's why I say I think that the to give the police department, again, to docket it, to for the cameras, for all this other technology. I think it was supposed to come up, but now the council's on a month-long break, so it's not going to come up for at least a month unless they call some emergency meeting, which I don't think they're going to do. And that's why I said is that the mayor and the council really do need to act with urgency and give the police department the tools, the training, the resources they need to help keep our community safe.
Without question. Getting back to Prop 36, what can our listeners do to learn more about Prop 36? Obviously, they'll make their own decisions come November, and just to get the word out on this. And again, Kristen, I don't know how much you knew about Prop 47 beforehand. I knew a bunch of it because of a person that used to report to Police Chief Zimmerman, a good friend of mine, Billy Kellner, who Shelley is smiling on this aspect, said you needed to get and talk about Prop 47 on your show, and he knew that Shelley and I were good friends on this aspect of it. So this is what we've been talking about this for a while. You, very well read, very much in the community, didn't know much about 47, correct?
I didn't. And it's a good reminder, too, to get involved with these issues that are affecting police and homelessness and all of this. So, I think it's encouraged me and hopefully the listeners to look into not only Prop 47, but these other kind of surrounding issues as well. Yeah,
you both bring up great points. I think the reason why, 10 years ago, Proposition 47 passed is because of the misleading ballot title. Right. The sad reality is, people often don't do their due diligence and really read what the propositions do, and they look at the ballot title and they go, oh my God, who doesn't want safe schools and streets? Everybody does, so we'll vote for that. But it had nothing to, that title really had nothing to do with what the measure did. Yeah. And so we're repealing that. And so, the Homelessness, Drug Addiction, and Theft Reduction Act is a very good, is a very good title. We'll see if that's the title that it ends up with on the actual ballot. Right. But, again, the best advice I can give is that do your due diligence, is that read, actually actually read what's written and what these propositions are going to do, and don't just look at the title.
Absolutely. Shelley Zimmerman, you're always a wealth of great content for our listeners. I can't wait till you come back on here again, and whatever topic you're going to talk about, it's going to be good. And wishing you and the folks who are behind Prop 36, nothing but a good success on this. I think it's a good change in the right direction on it, and see where it goes. And I'm looking forward to you teeing up the new police chief of San Diego, Captain Wall, to Police Chief Wall now, I should say.
Yes.
To come on the show, and we'd love to chat with him sooner than later.
Great. Thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Shelley Zimmerman, retired police chief of San Diego. Another fine interview. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. Been doing great things for 6 decades. As always, Kristen Fogel, thank you for being shoulder to shoulder with me. You've been doing a great job as a co-host. And to our listeners, we hope you enjoyed the interview with the chief.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.